Greetings and peace. I would like to start this with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Peace be with you and yours. Today, I would like to do a presentation on the Stockholm Syndrome in the Masonic Brotherhood and shattering that illusion. So without further ado, sit back, enjoy the show, and I represent myself only. Again, as a disclaimer, I represent myself only under free speech for entertainment and educational purposes. What you are about to hear is not the official view of any organization, lodge, or fraternity, but my own critical analysis. This presentation is designed to challenge assumptions, to shed light on hidden contradictions, and to encourage unity within our communities. We cannot grow if we do not have honest conversations about history, recognition, legitimacy, and the pursuit of approval from systems that have historically oppressed us. Everything here is presented in the spirit of intellectual freedom, right? Where Masons promote being a free thinker and a free knower and doer. So, in my personal journey, I have resigned honorably in good standing from all lodges that I have belonged to and bodies and houses in America and outside of America. So there will be stuff here that many of you might not agree with, but you got to hear me out here. So for those that are new to this work, I recommend even before you watch this presentation, you look at the resources that I have listed here for further exploration, and I encourage you study and understand these materials before even watching my video. Alright, so let's just jump into it. So this is not a condemnation of individuals, but a critique of structures that encourage dependence on colonial approval. We will confront difficult truths about recognition, legitimacy, and the divisions that weaken us. The goal is not destruction, but liberation and unity. For many Black Masons and the Prince Hall affiliated lodges, there's a quite tension, right, that often goes unspoken. They gather in spaces that feel sacred, filled with scripture, prayer, and ritual. Yet the foundations of Freemasonry isn't biblical at all. It's not a biblical organization or a Christian organization. Its roots stretch back to ancient Africa, Middle East, and Eastern traditions, long before Europe rebranded it through colonial lenses. So while members may sincerely profess Christian faith, they're also participating in a system shaped by mysticism and symbolism that doesn't align with the Bible they hold dear. It's a strange contradiction, honoring ancestral wisdom through a framework once controlled by slave masters, right? Or being exclusive to a slave master's religion. And many people have complained to me that I feel like I'm sitting in a church, while trying to reconcile that with church-like devotion. For some, it feels empowering. For others, it's confusing, like living in two spiritual worlds at once. Cognitive dissonance is when beliefs and realities clash, creating psychological tension. In Black Masonry, especially within Prince Hall affiliation, there exists a contradiction. On one hand, a proud heritage of survival and fraternity, and on the other, a constant desire for validation from mainstream, white-controlled institutions. This presentation examines that dissonance and asks, why do we keep bowing to Massa for approval when our heritage predates his system? And Massa is basically referring to master, right? The white master. Stockholm Syndrome describes when captives identify with their captors, defending them even against their own interests. In Black Masonry, the syndrome appears when lodges proudly claim recognition from England or white state grand lodges, as if this is the ultimate validation. Yet the same bodies that enslaved us, segregated us, and labeled us clandestine, quote-unquote, are the ones whose praise we chase. This dependency prevents true independence. A frequent statement among Prince Hall Masons is, quote-unquote, England recognized us and gave us our charter. But ask, who gave England the authority to decide legitimacy, right? Is it the same Grand Lodge who claims to be the Mother Grand Lodge, right? just like the British Museum. Do we give them the authority of being the total, let's say, mother museum of all history and artifacts, archaeology, and all of that in between? They stole that from all over the world through colonialism. Masonry as a system is also taken from Africa, Asia, and the Near East, right? What we know as this Grand Lodge in England was not the origin of Masonry, but simply another custodian of a tradition older than Europe itself. By clinging to this colonial stamp of approval, we diminish the African and Eastern sources of Masonic light that preceded this Mother Grand Lodge by millennia. Ironically, despite claiming legitimacy through England, Prince Hall affiliation itself has often been branded clandestine. Mainstream Masonry across the United States historically refused to acknowledge PHA as legitimate. Even documents exist where state Grand Lodges explicitly call Prince Hall lodges irregular. If legitimacy rests on England's charter, then why are PHA brethren still treated as outsiders? The contradiction exposes the hollowness of borrowed validation. Even now in 2025, several southern U.S. jurisdictions still do not fully recognize or practice equality with Prince Hall affiliation. In states like Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi, barriers remain. And some might say, okay, yeah, one of these states, they have mutual recognition, but that doesn't mean anything, right? Even in Florida, right, they were recognized a few years ago. And just up until now, they started being allowed to visit each other. That doesn't mean anything. Deep down inside, that barrier is still there. Some Grand Lodges claim quote-unquote recognition, yet maintain policies that prevent joint meetings, shared rituals, or true brotherhood. Recognition on paper does not equal acceptance in reality. Alabama, attempts at cooperation between PHA and state Grand Lodges remain symbolic rather than real. In Georgia, racial tension continues to undermine full unity, with Black Masons relegated to a separate status. Mississippi's history shows token gestures of recognition without integration. These examples prove that colonial stamp of legitimacy does not erase racism. The contradiction is clear. Prince Hall lodges claim the honor of England's recognition, yet many remain unwelcome in their own backyards. How can a system be valid if the same mainstream lodges that praise England still deny fellowship? Recognition becomes a hollow trophy, a badge of masses' approval, while real equality is absent. Albert Pike, a Confederate general and leading architect of the Scottish Rite, is revered in many Masonic circles. Yet, Pike defended slavery, propagated racist ideology, and aligned with forces that sought to keep Black people in chains. When Black Masons celebrate recognition from systems built by men like Pike, they align themselves with legacies of oppression. Even the story of recognition itself is riddled with contradictions. Historical accounts from England later admitted that the original charter given to Prince Hall and his brethren was issued in error, especially when they talk about Anderson's constitutions and how basically the Grand Lodge made an error since Prince Hall was not a freeborn man, and how he went through the Irish Grand Lodge with John Batt, the military lodge, and paid for the degrees, right, which was not supposed to happen. It was not meant to set up a fully independent Grand Lodge, but became the foundation of Prince Hall Masonry nevertheless. This reveals that the very charter that many claim as the cornerstone of legitimacy was granted by mistake. And there are many Grand Lodges in America who still stick by that, right? West Virginia and some of the southern states till this very day. In Pennsylvania, a state where mutual recognition supposedly exists between Prince Hall and a state Grand Lodge, the reality is exposed by practice. A Prince Hall Mason who wishes to affiliate with the state Grand Lodge must resign first from his Prince Hall jurisdiction. I've seen this myself. Repeat all of his degrees, his work, his oaths, his years of labors are disregarded as if they are never counted. So he has to start with the state Grand Lodge from square one. This shows that recognition is hollow, conditional, and disrespectful. The system still views Prince Hall Masons as second class, no matter the paperwork. And I've seen this with my own eyes, right? First, they have to resign from Prince Hall, prove that they have resigned. Then, whether they were a Master Mason, Worshipful Master, Past Master, doesn't matter. They got to repeat the entire process all over again. So it doesn't matter if you're recognized or not. They still consider you beneath them. These examples shatter the illusions of equality. Recognition is not fraternity. It is a token of masses' approval, revoked or minimized whenever convenient. The Ku Klux Klan borrowed heavily from Masonic ritual, since many of the Masons in the KKK, or that founded it, were basically from the southern jurisdictions. So it's an organization basically founded by the Southern Masons of America. And it's interesting that their holy book is, or their book that they use, the ritual book, is called the Quran, and how basically Masonry has Islamic foundations. And they have their own satanically inverted version of that, calling it the Quran. And their ritual book echoes the secrecy, symbols, and ranks of Masonry. This overlaps, right, is not accidental. White fraternal networks shared members and practices. That black Masons would seek legitimacy from systems that birthed both Masons and Klansmen is a painful irony, seeking or begging for recognition from these creatins. My question is, who gave the United Grand Lodge of England the right to define legitimacy? The true origins of Masonry lie in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. By seeking recognition from England, we ignore our ancestral claim to the very light that this Mother Grand Lodge pretends to control. We should not beg for stamps of approval from those who stole our heritage, right? Just like making the British Museum the head of history and archaeology and ancient history. They stole that from all over the world. It's not theirs. The ancient mystery schools of Kemet and Nubia practiced initiation, symbolism, and fraternity long before European Masonry existed. Pyramids, temples, and priesthoods preserved sacred knowledge. When Europeans later appropriated fragments of this wisdom, they recast it as their own. Thus, when black Masons bow to England's recognition, they ignore that the very roots of Masonry are African. Beyond Africa, Asia and the Middle East hosted deep initiatory traditions. Sufi brotherhoods, Hindu initiates, Persian magi, and others carried the light. Europe borrowed from these traditions, not the other way around. Recognizing this truth reclaims dignity for non-European sources of wisdom. And that's why even with me, I did my work and did what I did with my books and presentations. Colonialism thrives on division. In Masonry, division occurs when PHA calls other black lodges, quote-unquote, clandestine. Rather than building unity, this creates hierarchy and exclusion. The tragedy is that oppressed people imitate their oppressors, turning the weapon of clandestine against their own brothers and sisters. The word clandestine has been used to fracture black Masonic unity. John G. Jones, for example, organized lodges outside PHA, yet was demonized instead of embraced. The weaponization of terminology ensures that colonial recognition, not community service, becomes the highest standard. This is a trap that keeps us enslaved. So if you really look at it, Masonry existed before 1717. Before that, who gave the authority to who, on who was recognized and who was not? As long as you were aiming to be a good human being, helping those less fortunate, right? Every human being has a claim upon your kind offices. Yet, I see everyone acting like scumbags and bullies, whether on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, when it comes to just basic human decency. Now, imagine proudly waving Massa's certificate while he still calls you unworthy. That is the irony of PHA loyalty to recognition, just like the Pennsylvania example that I pointed out, where if you decide to transferred to the State Grand Lodge, even though it's recognized, right? They recognize each other. England recognized both of them, yet they still have to resign and redo all of the degrees. PHA lodges put down other black-led lodges, claiming they are irregular, yet the same accusation is hurled at PHA by many mainstream Grand Lodges. It is a cycle of dependence that perpetuates division. True legitimacy is not defined by Europe. It is defined by service, by integrity, by community, and uplifting your community. If recognition from England or state Grand Lodges does not translate to equality, justice, or empowerment, then what is it worth? Unity within the community is far more valuable than validation from colonial authorities, right? The same colonial authorities who raped and pillaged and destroyed more than half of the known world and stole everything, and now are trying to say that everything originated from them. And even in England now, they had these marches taking place telling people to go back to where they came from. And a Sikh woman, right, who was being dishonored. So it's a lot happening in these places who claim to be morally superior. Masonry's true principle states, every human being has a claim upon your kind offices. This is the charge, right? When you're in lodge, it's given to you. Yet how often do PHA lodges live by this principle? When Black Masons put down their fellow brothers and sisters, they betray the core of fraternity. Recognition is meaningless without practice of universal brotherhood. And I've seen this myself, being a Mason doesn't mean, I don't wear a ring, hat, shirt, never of that. I never did, even while I was active and I'm part of it. And, even I have friends who work in certain areas, and they say they see people that walk in wearing the square and compass at gas stations being mad disrespectful. So what is the whole thing about, right? You got to look in the mirror and ask yourself, why are you wearing those symbols if you're going to act like a scumbag? When Black lodges divide themselves based on recognition, they betray the essence of brotherhood. Instead of helping communities suffering from poverty, violence, and systematic racism, too many lodges focus on proving they are not quote-unquote clandestine. This obsession is betrayal, not brotherhood, right? What are you doing to come together and helping your communities? Not doing shit. You're not doing a goddamn thing to help your people, except perpetuate more division and to see who qualifies for masses' approval and recognition. The real measure of a lodge is not whether England recognizes it, but whether it feeds the hungry, shelters the homeless, educates children, and uplifts the oppressed. Community service is the true charter. Everything else is vanity and bullshit. Now, I say this plainly, right? Addressing all the Black Masons, brothers and sisters, right? Masons, Eastern Stars, whether you're quote-unquote recognized or not. I say this plainly. Stop fighting for masses' approval. Stop putting down your own people in the name of foreign validation. You have brothers and sisters in your community who need you now. Build schools, mentor youth, empower families. Recognition will not save us. Only unity and service will. Now, the future lies in decolonizing Masonry, reclaiming African and Eastern roots, and rejecting dependency on European validation. We must teach our history honestly, build unity, and redefine legitimacy as service to humanity rather than stamps from colonial institutions. And I've seen this with my own eyes. Whether you join a recognized lodge or Grand Lodge body or not, if you're a non-white Mason, right, they will never like you and never accept you, right? It's like that Indian gnome that we're seeing who who says that, oh, I'll see you in Valhalla, brother, that recently meme that came viral, and everyone's just calling him a dork and making fun of him. What does that show you? Regardless of his loyalty to the white right wing, him speaking in an English accent, perfect American English accent, serving the system, the best to his ability, yet they still call him a dork and a piece of trash at the end of the day, right? The FBI director. So there you go. Doesn't matter how high up you get, how recognized you are, how you're serving them. At the end, the reality is the reality. Let us reject the Stockholm syndrome of recognition. Let us unite across lodge lines, embrace one another, and rebuild our communities. Recognition from England cannot solve our problems. Only unity, knowledge, and action can. Too often, black faces are placed at the front to protect white institutions from accountability. When police violence occurs, as in Florida, where a black man was brutalized, right, they smashed his windows and started punching him, right? The system responds not with justice but with performance, putting black officers on the podium to defend the indefensible. This is strategy, not coincidence. We must stop mistaking proximity to power for power itself and refuse to be the mask that hides someone else's crimes. Respect without compromise is the only path to true unity and liberation. Stop bowing to massa. Start building together. The light of Masonry is not in England's charter or the recognition of racist institutions. The light is in our own heritage, our unity, and our service. Let us reclaim what was stolen and walk forward together in truth. Here are further resources that I recommend for all of you to study. Thank you for watching, and again, if any questions or comments, please email me at salmansheikh911@gmail.com. And all of the images, information, viewpoints, and all of that in between in this video are for the purpose of nonprofit, free speech, awareness, entertainment, and education purposes, which is protected by the copyright laws of fair use, education purposes. And that is the purpose of the video and the channel. Thank you, all rights reserved.